Ahoy there, my miniature gamer friends. Rodge here, aka the Wisco Horn Dog. And I am back again for another frickin' Saga Thursday. We are continuing our look at the Pagan Rus battleboard, the dramatic conclusion, so to speak. And we're gonna frickin' pop right back in.
Okay. Why don't you do Cold Winds here?
Yeah. So Cold Winds, it's a shooting reaction. It uses an uncommon or a rare. For each attack die that rolls a natural 6 against your unit, the shooting unit takes 1 fatigue. And if you used a rare die for this ability, the shooting unit takes a fatigue for each 5 rolled as well. So this is a solid shooting reaction ability to basically potentially fatigue bomb a unit that wants to throw some shots out. Now, I will say that in most cases, you're probably not having a rare for this because you've utilized your rare for biting like wolves or for the Hirgan. And so it's typically an uncommon if you're going to be using this ability. At least in my experience. Now, if you're facing a very, very shooty warband that can put out a lot of dice, it would certainly be worth using a rare. It's just that other abilities tend to utilize, at least in my experience, tend to utilize the rare more for the attack stuff. Because when you think about it, you know, most units are rolling 4 dice ish on an attack, maybe 6. And so, you know, if you use an uncommon, in either case, that's about 1 fatigue. If you use a rare, in the case of the 6 dice, you're statistically going to get 2 fatigues put on them. But at 4, it becomes dicey whether or not that is actually worthwhile. So, I don't know.
Good. It doesn't look like there's much else that uses the rare. I mean, biting like wolves, obviously, you know, you're gonna get that baby stacked up. For the Kagan is like marginally better with the rare, but it seems like this one's a lot better with the rare, where
it's twice as good. Right?
Yeah, where I mean, you're definitely gonna get at least 1 most times if you use the rare. Where,
yep.
If you just take it as is, you know, you may or may not get it. But yeah, I guess it depends. But decent. It doesn't protect you against the actual shots you're taking. But when people like to sometimes stack up those big crossbow units or levies, what have you, it can kind of, if you get lucky, you can just shut down that levy unit basically after that first volley.
What I've found is typically, you know, if I'm facing armies that have decent amounts of shooting, I don't have to stack up as much on my combat abilities, and so I can put something in here with Cold Winds and then actually put, you know, 1 or 2 in combat pool so that I can kind of do both. Where when they shoot at me, I throw a Cold Winds up, but then also say, I'm going to take 2 extra defense dice. And because I save on a 4, I've got a solid shot of not losing any models or losing maybe 1 model. And all of a sudden you're sitting with a fatigue or 2 extra for the Cold Winds.
Yeah, and that might be the only shot they get.
Yep.
If you get a little lucky.
Yep.
It's decent. It's always nice to have some kind of ability against shooting.
Yep.
Kind of situational, but okay. Moving on. Fear of the Dark. Activation 2 uncommons. Designate an enemy unit that is more than medium away from any other unit. This unit takes as many fatigues as needed to get exhausted.
Yep.
God, that's good. But if you know this seems like it's going to happen to you once, and then you're going to alter your battle plan accordingly.
Yep.
Although, you know, depending on scenarios, you know, a lot of the times with the unlimited war bands, and they're coming out from a table edge, you can have a nice big unit of 12 dudes, and then, yeah, I think 2 uncommons to exhaust those bastards would be well worth it.
Yep. This, as you said, it tends to happen once, and then never again, because it's also medium away from any other unit. So if your unit's within medium, it doesn't work. Which is kind of weird, right? Like, if they're terrified of, they're afraid of the dark. They're theoretically terrified of the Pagan Rus that are in the dark.
Yeah, once they see him, they're like,
no, these guys aren't a big deal.
It's like 13th Warrior, dude. They're just men. They're not bear people. It's a man. It's a man. That is a good point.
So like it rarely happens. The one big use. So ultimately, what this does is it forces your opponent to block up a little bit. I find the biggest use is for scenario games like, for example, Sacred Ground, where
you have to.
You have to split up in order to get at the different objectives. And then because what I'll do a lot of times with Sacred Ground is I'll just throw like one unit at whatever the closest terrain feature is that's just enough to accumulate a bunch of points and let that sit, and then I will go hard after one or two others with the rest of my force. This prevents that to some extent, where if somebody does that, you can Fear of the Dark them, exhaust them. They're going to still sit in that objective theoretically if they've gotten to that point, although if they haven't yet and they then are stuck sitting there, that's a lot of resources they have to use in order to get to that terrain feature potentially. But then allows for, once a unit's at a point of exhausted, you can just start moving another like smaller unit over and just beat the crap out of it without too much issue.
Yeah.
That could be when there's scenarios that force you to split up a little bit, this can be pretty useful. Otherwise, almost never gets used.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a good ability and kind of keeps, I can see another one, sometimes with like Death Star shooty units that are like big to 12-man units. They really got to play it a lot safer because they need to, you can do their attack run or whatever, but then they need to make sure they get all the way back within 6 inches of their guys again.
Well, and with Frozen potentially up.
Ooh, yeah, baby.
You can catch them out.
Yeah. That is nice. Yeah, I went back to Frozen here just to see if it was the second one, but for the second or subsequent time. Does Frozen have to be used only on the second one? Or could you... It says second or subsequent time.
So the second or any time after.
Okay, so you can
how that...
let them come across, and then when it's time to retreat, that's when the boots are stuck to the ground. Got it.
Yep.
Decent. Okay, cool. Me likey. Next up, Endless Wastes. It's an activation using 2 commons, and each non-warlord unit on the table must immediately kill one of its models for each fatigue it has. Okay, so this looks like it affects both people. Is that right?
Yes, it affects everyone on the board.
Okay, so if you're fresh and they are not, you're sitting good.
Yep.
That is decent.
It's tricky to pull off in a way that's not going to bite you in the ass. But if you've maybe put on some, again, utilizing Standing Like Bears, potentially, put on some fatigue on, like, say, a warrior unit, as opposed to, and you're dropping your dice to go after a Hearthguard unit and surviving, you might be able to put a fatigue on them and thus, be able to kill off a one warrior for one Hearthguard, that kind of scenario. Or if you manage to fatigue bomb an army by killing out one unit in the middle of it, then be able to kill off a bunch of things. Or, as we were kind of talking about before with the Fear of the Dark, if you have managed to exhaust a unit that's away from the army, whether that's Sacred Ground or another scenario, you can then immediately play Endless Waste. I have done that once, where I exhausted a Hearthguard unit, so it was 4 fatigues, and then I played Endless Waste and killed 4 models, and it doesn't take the fatigue away, so the fatigue continues to sit there for, say, the next turn when you want to play Endless Waste again.
Do it again. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so it seems like this is kind of playing a little bit like the Danes in a way where you're going to leave the fatigues on them, but where the Danes, a lot of the abilities are just like generating additional fatigues. You don't have a lot to do that, but you're just going to keep on whatever you can fatigue you're going to get. You're just going to leave it on there frequently. Yeah, that's brutal. 1 for each fatigue. Yeah, one thing too is you can get more, you can get too exhausted, and you can just keep going too. You can just,
Yep.
Potentially 5 or 6
Yep.
if you're showing no mercy. Please use a fatigue.
Yep.
Wow.
Now again,
That's juicy.
this is an expensive ability. It's
2 dice.
it's commons, but it's 2 dice. And if you were to pull off the Fear of the Dark plus this combo, it would equate to 4 of your dice. So you wouldn't really be doing a whole lot else. So again, this one, it's easier to pull off than Fear of the Dark, but it is used pretty sparingly, partially because of the dice cost and partially because of the fact that it's a double edge. So it's one of those things that's like, it's there to keep your opponent honest. Same with Fear of the Dark. It's there to keep your opponent honest. Like,
you're playing my game, bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it definitely situational. One where probably at the start of each of your turns, you're just gonna do, okay, well I could kill 7 guys. Is that worth it? If it was 7, probably, but if it's 3,
Maybe
2
not.
or 3, probably not. But okay, cool. That's a fun one. Looks like most of these are decent abilities so far.
Yep.
I haven't really encountered any duds, but there's 2 left. Seems like that bottom right one is always kind of crappy. I don't know. We're gonna get to it. Well, I don't know if this is gonna hold.
Just wait.
But okay, why don't you do Eastern Anger? Looks like another double here.
Another double. So this requires double uncommon. It is an activation ability. Resolve a shooting against each unit, friendly and enemy, that has at least 1 model within medium of your warlord. Generate 6 attack dice during each of these shooting resolutions. This also includes your warlord. Your warlord is within medium of himself, so he will also take those shots. So the warlord and every unit within medium of him takes 6 attack dice shooting attack.
You get... Okay, I'm having trouble. You get attacked?
Yes. So every
and your
unit,
warlord gets attacked by 6 dice.
Warlord, any unit within M, including your own.
Okay. Oh, interesting. 6 attack dice for shooting is pretty decent. That's a full-size warrior or levy unit.
Right.
It's kind of nice because a lot of warbands are weak against shooting or horses. I guess it's definitely going to take some planning here.
Yes.
Get this baby off. I mean, statistically, your warlord should not have any problem surviving 6 shots. You should take 1, and you should automatically cancel it.
Yep.
The issue then is if you get a unit within, to absorb wounds for him, then they take 6 hits too.
That they do.
So you can't. I don't know. I'm kind of an idiot, so I would probably do it and potentially kill my warlord. But I guess depending what you're shooting at, if I can shoot at 6 Hearthguard on horses or something like that, that's juicy. Do you go for this? I think you definitely have to plan your turn around it. It seems like
you definitely have to plan the turn around it
because you can't leave your warlord by himself then.
No. So this one's tricky. I will say I've rarely used it, but when I have used it, it has been relatively devastating.
Yeah, because you could get 2 or 3 or more enemy units. Caught, and
I was playing against an Irish warband.
And those little fuckers
who are weak. So they themselves are fairly shooty, but they themselves have -1 armor against shooting,
like the Welsh.
Right. So I was actually losing the game fairly handily, and thought, fuck it, and I ran the warlord up and dropped Eastern Anger. And I think in that turn alone, I think I killed 9 models.
Yeah.
I want to say some egregious things, because I caught 3 or 4 units within it, and just murdered with this ability. And And so I think there are more applications that I tend to give it credit for. So one thing is, you're typically, when you think about how you position your warlord, a lot, especially with this warband, when you want to have units going in with the warlord to use biting like wolves, you're generally going to have like a half circle of dudes surrounding your warlord, which is a little dicey if you lose combat, but like you're generally going to have that little like semicircle going on. And so in this case, you could walk the warlord up medium, and the warriors will not be within medium at that point because he's moved his full movement out. You can then utilize Eastern Anger to potentially catch out some units, and then spend a dice to bring that warrior unit back up, sit next to him.
Yeah, you got to get him back.
Yep. I honestly typically though will, if I possibly can, I will run the unit with him, and then activate Eastern Anger, just because I don't trust my dice. My dice are a bunch of bastards, and at any given moment, if I give them the opportunity to bite me in the ass, they will. So I have also killed my warlord using this ability. I think I rolled 3 or 4 sixes once, and that did not go over very well.
Yeah, 3 sixes, no good. Yeah, you have to roll 2 sixes, and you're sweating, and you're like, ooh, gotta make one of these.
Yep. So having a couple extra bodies is key. Otherwise, I could also see some application for combat pool, to give yourself an extra die or two, because it is a shooting resolution. It's a shooting attack, so you could theoretically combat pool your own Eastern Anger on yourself.
Yeah.
And gain a couple extra defense die to hopefully make sure you don't kill yourself. But again, in the right circumstances, against Irish, against mounted warbands, what have you, this can be utterly devastating.
Yeah, this is really cool. I like this. But, get some shooting attacks, even though you don't have the corresponding troopers. Yeah, I think more warbands should have something like this, for funsies. But okay, cool. Another good one. We're going barren lands. Is this the dud? I don't know. I'm going to read it right now. Until the end of the current turn, the armor of all mounted models is reduced by 1 in melee and against shooting, and that costs a single uncommon.
And it's an orders or an orders reaction.
Yeah. So you can use it in their start of their turn as well. That's juicy. Obviously situational, but a lot of the times those mounted warbands are pretty good, and they're not taking much of a hit for being mounted. In this case, they will.
Yep.
Melee and against. So you could pop this baby with the Eastern Anger.
Yeah. So then it's a -2.
Hitting them Hearthguard on 3s. Ooh,
yep.
Juicy. I like it. Yeah. That one, handy. Yeah, all of these are looking pretty good. I like this board.
Yeah, and Barren Lands, I will say I tend to use that honestly more defensively, since mounted units tend to have such a higher threat range than anything that I got going on as a foot warband. You can pop that. You can keep a die, like you're playing against like Milites Christi or Spanish or something, Normans, and you just pop that die at the top of every opponent turn. You say, okay, come in on me, and you're going to be -1 armor. So you might be able to bump up a bunch of your abilities, and we'll maybe trade at that point, because your armor's at the -1. So as a defensive ability against mounted troops, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds good. So, okay. Overall, what kind of mix of troopers in your warband, I guess? So, we said the levy had javelins. I don't really see any levy buffing abilities here specifically, so we're probably going to leave those guys at home. So between warriors, Hearthguard, maybe slightly towards Hearthguard, maybe like 4 Hearthguard, 2 warriors. I don't know. What do you usually take?
So what I did for Adepticon was 3 points Hearthguard, 2 points Warriors, 1 Priest. Back when Priests had the old rules, which we'll discuss at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
However,
or in a time before this,
or in a time before this, who knows?
Who knows when these?
Who knows what Rodge decides
when they get released?
So that was my Adepticon list, but I actually thinking about what would be more optimal. Like if you're looking at what's optimal or what would be kind of using a lot of these abilities, I actually would go heavier warriors by a long shot because of standing like bears. And because of biting like wolves already kind of having a high emphasis on your warlord, I think you could get away with a lot of warriors in this list.
So you just focus that ability around the warlord and kind of don't try to. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, really, any kind of mix will probably see you good here.
The one thing that I could actually you see a warlord, not a warlord, a warrior priest being used with this warband. It's a little bit dice intensive between the dice you need to activate the priest and the dice for its own ability. But again, it is an armor 5 model that has 3 attacks, so you can use him almost like a mini warlord with biting like wolves.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
He doesn't quite have. I don't think he has the same protections the warlord has in terms of division of dice. But
that's a good question.
I've never used one, so I don't actually
specifically know. I have to look where that exactly is in the rule book. I don't think that is specifically addressed one way or the other. But that warrior priest, he's the only other kind of unit like that.
Yep.
I would say that the same restrictions apply, everything being even.
Then he becomes nasty as hell. So that could be a very interesting ad.
That is a good point. You got some nice armor buffs here. I think you're gonna be pretty good no matter what mix you're going for here. So, yeah, cool. I like this board. It seems like over the course of the battle, it just gets better and better. As the fatigue starts piling up, you're getting more use out of these various abilities. Cool.
It's very control based as well, which can be an interesting. It doesn't. You would think as a foot Viking-ish type army that it wouldn't be super control, but this between Fear of the Dark, Endless Wastes, Great Winter, Frozen, you actually have a lot of opportunity to play with your opponent's movement and or overall strategy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Got a nice mix of abilities. I think this is a really good board. Just based off. There's no deads. Everything's pretty good. You got a nice mix of abilities. One fucking brutal ability that isn't competing against any other abilities as far as the rare goes when it comes down to it. This one's juicy. This one's fun. So you took these at Adepticon in 2016. How did they do for you? Did you?
I ended up 4-2 in the championships, I think actually had I played more games, I could have at least won for sure the 5th game. Like I actually I didn't steamroll because was I 4-2? Did we tie? Or did I beat you by a slight? Didn't we tie?
I think it was a tie.
So then maybe I was 3-2-1.
Yeah, or like a tech. Yeah, it was really close. Yeah, it might have been technically a win, or it might have been a tie.
Okay.
Either way, it was really close. But I can't remember for sure.
I did real well against first 4 opponents, yourself included, and that was a really tough game. And then I ran into my 5th opponent who was playing Irish, and the first turn of the game he used the acorn ability where like the Irish kids like fucking chuck acorns and rocks at you. And he did that it boosted all of his abilities, and it killed 4 or 5 Hearthguard in just the one round of shooting.
A little freebie.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how this is gonna go. And like it was like the dice just nothing. So overall Pagan Rus, I've really enjoyed playing them. And because they're trickier. The first warband that I played was Yams and Vikings, who are both a little bit more straightforward in some sense. This felt like I had a lot more options and kind of an answer to everything in a way, which is kind of fun. Like not necessarily an expert at anything other than maybe defensive stuff, but kind of has a little bit for everyone to enjoy. I'm taking them again for this year's Adepticon, so
cool.
We'll see how they do this time around.
Excellent. I'm sure they'll be fun. Yeah, I think this is a cool warband. I think a lot of people will come around to this one if they haven't. The models are cool. They're foot sloggers still, but they kind of do their own thing. So that's cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for popping on, buddy.
Yeah, of course, dude.
And going through this with me, and we'll do it again sometime. All right.
Sounds good, man.
All right, stay fucking cool.
See you, bud.
See ya.
Boosh! That was the Pagan Rus battleboard, and that was freaking phenomenal. Those guys are cool. Big thanks to Mikey G, the People's Viking, for helping out on this one. He definitely had some knowledge bombs there, and we did play a game as mentioned, but I don't think I experienced half of the potential of that board, so now I'm a little freaked out by these guys. I think they are pretty nasty, and I'm just gonna have to pick some up. Can't beat them, join them. It's a pretty good philosophy. A lot of people said that. So, anyways, if you have any comments about the Pagan Rus, if you play Pagan Rus, and these guys seem like the shit, and if they're not the shit, why don't you tell me why you aren't just kicking everybody's a-holes in, because it seems like these dudes are kind of rock stars. I don't know. Maybe I need some feedback from you guys to kind of figure this out. So go ahead, drop me a line below or hit me up on Twitter at WiscoHornDog. I post lots of good stuff on there. Like and favorite this shit. Share with a buddy. Spread that saga goodness across the land, and become a hobby horn dog today.
Saga!